Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about unit attack bonuses and just in general, like what units counter which other units. So each unit has like its own attack damage, but against other units, it has like a secret like hidden attack bonus. And so this battle elephant might do 12 damage against, I don't know, this is bombard cannon. But there might be another unit in here where it actually does bonus damage towards. I don't think that battle elephant actually does bonus damage towards any unit. But the one thing that's hidden for the battle elephant is that it does this like blast damage that basically any unit that's like kind of surrounding it also takes some damage, which other units don't necessarily have that. So that's kind of one thing that's special about the battle elephant. But anyways, I'm going to start off by talking about not ninjas, because ninjas aren't actually a unit in the game, but they kind of look cool, and I wish they were. But yeah, it's not in the game yet, so I'm going to kill the ninja. We're going to talk about monks. So monks, basically what they do is that they can convert the other units to your side. So if I convert this unit here, it'll turn into a blue unit and it'll be under my control. And so anyways, it has a certain range here that it specifies, so it's 9 range, so basically 9 tiles, right? And for most units, it converts from a range. There are some exceptions, so the exceptions are the ram here. The monk actually has to be right up against this ram to convert it. And the other unit that it has to be right up against is the trebuchet. Also, it has to be right up against buildings as well. The one thing, though, that you'll notice is that I can't actually convert these buildings because it says you have to research redemption first. And redemption is a technology within the monastery that allows you to convert buildings and siege units. So, yeah. But aside from the buildings and the siege units, you can convert all these other units without redemption. So the missionary kind of acts in the same way. The only difference here is that the missionary has less range, but the advantage here is that the missionary is more mobile. So that's also good. One thing to note too, I guess this is kind of a small tip, it doesn't really have to do with bonuses, but the missionaries can't pick up relics, whereas the normal monks can. Alright, so that kind of does it for the monks. Hopefully you guys kind of understand now what the monks do. I guess one last thing with the monks is that they don't really necessarily have a bonus versus any unit. I mean, they do better against slower units and non-range units because, like, if it tries to convert an archer, well, then an archer can just get within range and then kill it. Versus like a cavalier or something, like a knight. A knight has to travel all the way to the unit in order to start doing damage to it, and by that time the monk usually converts it. And so monks do good against melee units because they have to close the gap before they can attack. But having said that, there are 2 melee units that actually do quite good against monks, and that's the light cavalry and just the light cavalry line in general. So it's not just like light cavalry; it's also scout cavalry and hussar. But they're quick, and they also, I think they resist conversion and they do bonus damage versus monks. So that's one counter. Another counter would be the Eagle Warrior, which is the meso unit. And if I can just zoom in here, you can kind of get a better look at these units. So you can see like the Eagle Warrior. This is also kind of a relatively quick unit, but it also does bonus damage to monks, and I think it resists conversion as well. And then lastly, I guess like the mangonels technically can counter monks, but if the monks do get redemption, then they can convert mangonels. So it's kind of like kind of depends type of situation. All right, so the villager is a unit that you use to build your economy. You typically like never fight with, well, you do fight with them sometimes like early game against units like scouts and stuff like that. Sometimes, but most times you don't fight. They do bonus damage versus buildings, so I'm not exactly sure how much bonus damage they do. Like right now, this villager does 3 damage, but if I were to attack this building, we're to do 6. So I think it might just be like +3. I don't think it's ×2. Usually the units don't, the way that their attack damage works, it doesn't multiply, it just adds. So in this case, I think it's just +3. But the villager doesn't do any bonus damage to any of these other units. So, but yeah, villagers are the only time you really attack with them are sometimes like if you're attacking weak feudal units. You use them, otherwise occasionally you'll like rush down like towers and stuff like that with villagers, but aside from that, yeah, you don't use it. So Here's a unit that I actually found out about the other day when I was playing as Aztecs. It's called the like Zorro Warrior, or I don't know what it's called, but anyways, it's a new unit to the game, and it can be found in Meso Civ stables. But the only way that you can actually get it is if you convert a stable. And so, anyways, it's basically the same attack as a knight, the same stats as a knight, and it costs the same as a knight. The only difference is that you can't get the armor upgrades with this unit, so it's not as good. But I thought it was kind of interesting. It doesn't do any bonus damage versus any of these units, as far as I know. And anyways, it's a really like you probably won't see this unit very often. So, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I actually saw Spirit of the Law release a video I think today about this unit. So if you want to go see that, just look up Zodal Warrior on YouTube and you'll be able to find it. But yeah. All right, next up we have the infantry line. So I'm just going to bring out the first units, which are the militia line. And so you can see here we have the militia, which is the Dark Age unit. We have the Man-at-Arms, which is the Feudal Age unit. We have the Longswordsman, which is the Castle Age unit. And we have the Two-Handed Swordsman and Champion, which are the Imperial Age unit. So the bonuses that these units get are against buildings, and they also do bonus damage versus Eagle Warriors. So Eagle Warriors are these units here. These three units are Eagle Warriors. Again, they're only used by the Mesocivs, but yeah, they do bonus damage versus them. You don't usually see these units against Eagle Warriors. I mean, you do sometimes, but most of the times people just make like knights or sometimes elephants against Eagle Warriors, but you don't see Militia Line, but they are good against them. The other unit that the Militia Line is good against, they're good against the trash units. And when someone says the trash units, they're talking about units that don't cost gold. So in this case, you'll see that the archers cost gold, so they're not considered a trash unit. But like skirmishers, this whole line costs no gold, so it's all food and wood. The spearmen is all food and wood, and the scout cavalry is just food. All these other units cost gold, a little bit of gold at least. And so yeah, the champions do pretty good against these units. Like I don't know if they have an attack bonus versus the pikemen. I don't think they do, but they still do quite good because the pikemen have relatively low damage. And so later on in the game, sometimes you see that people go for like champions because they don't cost much gold and they do really good against trash. So if the enemy only has trash units, the champions can be quite good. And they also kill buildings quickly, so it's kind of like a siege unit mixed with I don't know, it kills like the army and it kills the building. There's not a whole lot of units that do that don't cost that. Like most units like Cavalier and stuff like that, they can kill army, but they cost a lot of gold. So that's kind of the benefits of the militia line. Again, as far as I know, they don't have any bonuses against any of these other units except for the Eagle Warriors and the buildings. Yeah. The last thing I'll say about these is you don't really see them super often. I mean, you see these two units used in random map, like in like early game strategies sometimes, and you'll see champions used in deathmatch games occasionally. But aside from that, you don't really see these units a whole lot, like super often, because they are weaker than like the Cavaliers, and even though they can be stronger than Arbalists, they can get kited by Arbalists, which is basically the Arbalists just hit and run. So they're not super popular, but yeah. Next up, we'll just talk about the Eagle Warriors. So the Eagle Warriors is a Meso unit, which again means that they can only be used by Mayans, Incas, and Aztecs, which are three civilizations in the game. The strengths of the Eagle Warriors is that they're quick. They're pretty strong. They do bonus damage versus cavalry. Even though they do bonus damage, though, they don't counter cavalry. The bonus damage basically puts them on the same level, like the same attack level as them. They do pretty good against trash units, though. Like they are better than scouts and light cavalry. So if you're ever going, like, don't think you're going to be able to counter Eagle Warriors with scout cavalry and light cavalry. Although, having said that, they're like the Eagle Scout, which is like the weakest of them, doesn't do very good against scouts. But as soon as you get the Eagle Warrior, it does very good against Scout Cavalry. So it's kind of, again, it's a situational thing. You'll learn it over time. But in general, the Eagle Warriors do they're like on par with cavalry units. They do really good against ranged units because they have a very high amount of pierce armor. So like right now they're unupgraded, but like in Imperial Age they can have up to +6 if you're Incas, and that ends up being a lot of pierce armor, and like archer units barely do any damage to them. So they do really good against range units. Not so, like they do okay against cavalry units, but then they do not so great against like heavy cavalry units. The other unit they don't do very good against, along with the other militia line units, is hand cannoneers, which includes janissaries and conquistadors. And basically, the hand cannoneers, they're considered gunpowder units, and they do bonus damage versus infantry. So yeah, they're also very good at like raiding. Like it's really easy to raid like the opponent's economy using Eagle Warriors because they're relatively quick and they kill villagers quite quickly. So yeah. All right, next up is the Pikemen and Halberdier, which I actually forgot Spearmen here, but let's just look at them really quick. So that's this line of units here, and again, these are all barracks units, and yeah, so you start with Spearmen in Feudal Age, but then you can upgrade to Pikemen and then later Halberdier. These units are basically exclusively used as units to kill cavalry units. They do a lot of extra bonus damage versus cavalry units. It's something like somewhere probably between like, I think it's like plus, oh gosh, what it is. Let me just look it up really quick. Spearmen do. By the way, I'm gonna link a website in the description that has information about all like the bonuses and stuff like that. And that's something that I would think that if you haven't, if you're new to the game, I would kind of go down the list of units and kind of look at like what their bonuses are and stuff like that. But don't forget to play games too, because that's one of the best ways to learn is like you kind of learn about something before playing the game, but then once you're in the game, you kind of like you'll make a mistake or something, and then you'll remember like what you learned before, and then you'll remember it long term. But no, the Spearmen again, versus like knights in light cavalry, they do 15 plus 15. Against elephants, they do plus 15. And against camels, they do plus 12. So normally they only do 4 damage, but or here I think they only do 3 damage, but they do plus 15 damage to cavalry. So again, a lot of their damage is done to cavalry units, and so if you're ever fighting against cavalry units, you want to make sure that your spearmen, pikemen, halberdier, whatever, are fighting the cavalry units. The other use of them later on in the game can sometimes be used as like what's considered a meat shield or buffer unit, and basically that unit is it's just a unit to take damage for like a gold unit behind it or whatever, and it's not really made to do a whole lot of damage, but it's just kind of a meat shield. I don't know if that really makes sense, but I can kind of elaborate on it if it doesn't make sense. Anyways, I think for the most part that covers these units. Archers do bonus damage versus pikemen and halberdiers, but I'll cover that later, I guess, as well with the archer units. But again, just to get an overview, champions do bonus versus eagle warriors, bonus versus buildings, also good versus trash units, but not so good against like heavy cavalry or range units. Eagles do good against range units. They do okay against cavalry units. They do good against trash units. Again, they're weak to the militia line. Pikemen do good against cavalry units, do bad against range units, do bad against other infantry units. And all of them together do bad against gunpowder units, hand cannoneers, and like janissaries and conquistadors. The last thing I'll say is, and there's a unit that isn't included here that I need to find right now, but there is a unit called the Condottiero, I think that's how you pronounce it, and I don't know if it's actually included here. It doesn't look like it's included in the tech tree. It's a unique unit that's exclusive to the Italian civilization, and let's see, where is this unit? Right, no, it's a Huscarl. Kind of looks like a Huscarl. Oh, right here. Okay, so you can't really see it super well. It kind of looks like a Huskarl a little bit, but anyways, it's an infantry unit that's anti-gunpowder. So all of these units here are bad against gunpowder, but this unit actually has a hidden armor bonus versus gunpowder, and it's also quite quick, and it does good against gunpowder. So I just thought I would cover it. You probably aren't going to use it a whole lot, but I just thought you know about it. It's Italians only, or if you're playing a team game, anybody on the Italians team can use it. But yeah, and then as far as strength goes, it's about equal to a two-handed swordsman, but it doesn't have the same bonuses like against eagles as a two-handed swordsman. So yeah, and it doesn't cost anything to research. So yeah, so that's basically the infantry units.